Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 376. I am your host, Michael. Joining me, per usual, cast of characters, Gail from NY Fights Community Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber for Boxing News. What's going on, lady and gent?
And my dogs.
And
Of course, been quiet
her
all day
dogs.
under the heat wave in Southern California, and it's just now
There you go.
time to wake the hell up. And we're coming at you on a Tuesday, but it feels like Monday.
Right.
I'm very
Since
messed up by
yesterday,
this, everybody. So we'll do our best.
since yesterday was Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to it. Belated Labor Day to everyone. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, of course, a live YouTube shows, podcast, blog / site that discusses all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, excuse me, it will get discussed. If you want to find out all information about Pound for Pound Box Report, my apologies for the phone ring in the background.
I think that's Al Heyman calling. You better pick it up.
For those who want to check out all things Pound for Pound Box Report, please check out the site p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us with questions, suggestions, thoughts, etc., you can do so p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site itself, you'll find links to where to check out us on all social media platforms, links to the YouTube channel, links to Facebook page, Twitter page, IG page, Tumblr page, links to where you can also donate. Let donation be the best nation. Got Cash Me and PayPal donation links. It'll really help the overall production behind the scenes. So if you got a little spare change you would like to contribute, by all means do so. Um, also, links to Pound for Pound Box Report. We are all over the podcast platforms, be it be it Anchor, be it Apple Podcast, be it Google Podcast, be it Spotify. We're just about everywhere. Uh, uh, we're not on Amazon yet, but we're just about everywhere else. So please check out Pound for Pound Box Report on all links that distribute RSS feeds. Last but certainly not least, please check out the link to Beachbody on Demand that's on the site. As we heading into the fall, if you're looking to get your body right, or you're looking to keep your body right, to challenge, to try something new on your health and wellness goals, please check out Beachbody on Demand. Take advantage of the 2-week trial, and that is for 14 days. There is an option where you can get 14 days free on Beachbody on Demand. I strongly suggest you check that out. During that 14-day free trial, you'll get free access to all programs on Beachbody on Demand, whether it's the challenging 6 weeks of the work, whether it's 645, whether it's PIO, bar blend, morning meltdown, uh, BYB, Bring Your Body, one of the newer programs on the on Beachbody on Demand. If you're looking to something weightlifting specific, I suggest you check out Lift 4, or the updated version of Lift 4, which is Lift More. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, I suggest you check out 10 Rounds, and that is a 6-week program, 5 days, 5 workouts per week, three consisting of boxing-based cardio, two consisting of weightlifting. So again, if you're looking to get your health and wellness goals going, or keep it going, please check out Beachbody on Demand. Let's get things started by recapping some fights this weekend. Let's start on a rare Sunday card. Uh, Gail, you start the show always with ladies first. And quick point of order here. I've been talking about in past episodes, um, uh, Ladies Love Boxing edition, which I do once a year, and that is for one. I devote one special episode of year while I have all a panel of all women talking boxing. Um, the goal is to do that next week, so please check us out next week. I'll give you more details as the week goes along, but yeah, next week the plan, fingers crossed, is to have the next edition of Ladies Love Boxing version of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. So look out for that next week. Let's get to these fight recaps again. Rare Sunday card, Gail, at Crypto.com Arena in LA. Headliner, of course, was was Andy Ruiz, Luis Ortiz, kind of I think it was a WBC eliminator. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Ruiz, he hurt Ortiz, put him down early. But my problem with him and Ruiz ended up winning by decision, close decision. I felt that at various times in this fight, he was able to hurt Ortiz with any hard punch that he landed. I mentioned that he put him down in round two. I felt he could have stopped him at that point, hurt him at very other points during the fight, round 7 or 8. I can't remember which one. But the bottom line is he was able to land pretty consistent with the right hand when he threw it. But I didn't like how he seemed passive at large points, at large sections of the bout. Let the foot off the gas too much, in my opinion. That let Ortiz get back into the fight, and Ortiz was actually the more busier fighter. Uh, I'm feeling kind of mid when it comes to the performance of Andy Ruiz. Even though he got the win, I'm like, okay, if I had to judge him, it was an incomplete.
A lot of people felt the same way you did because they anticipated a complete bang fest with these two guys. They're both incredible power punchers in different ways. Ruiz relies on his speed. Ortiz is just a sheer raw power kind of guy. But Andy Ruiz, you'll make no secret of the fact in interviews leading up to the fight, he would not predict a knockout. He would not promise a knockout win. He said all he wanted was the victory. And that is exactly what we got from him. He didn't want to put himself in more danger than necessary because he's looking a few steps down the road. He knows a win Sunday, which he got, puts him in front of likely Deontay Wilder, or certainly the winner of Wilder Helenius is coming up. That's a much bigger payday than he got Sunday, although he still got paid $1 million purse on Sunday. And Ortiz got 550, should anybody be curious. So once he had scored those knockdowns, and had taken some incoming fire himself, because sometimes Andy's only defense is his good chin, and that was working for him, thank goodness. He backed off. He did what he needed to do. They both landed almost the exact same number of punches, but Ortiz was the busier man in the ring. And so, from an eye test for a lot of people watching, they wanted to reward the activity rate of Ortiz, who's not normally the busier man in the ring. But Ruiz, the speed is deceptive. He does not throw a tremendous amount of punches. It's just when he does, as a heavyweight, when he can throw swiftly and in combination, it's not what we're used to seeing. And so there were a little bit of mind tricks going on when you watch a fight with Ruiz. But he did what he needed to do. He seemed very happy. He did cut it a little close, though. Those judges, he's very lucky that he had those 3 knockdowns. It would have been a majority draw with 1 less knockdown on those cards. But in the end, did what he needed to do. Left fans a little bit disappointed. He's very lucky that the undercard made up for it in a lot of ways, which we'll get to.
Ortiz, Daniel, his previous bout was a stoppage win over former champion Charles Martin, right? 5th round. Even though he got the stoppage, there were points in that fight where he was hurt. To me, it was clear at that point that Ortiz doesn't have any legs anymore and doesn't carry the same punch resistance. It seemed like ever since the 2 fight with Wilder, you can hurt him easier now than you could before. And it showed once again in this fight. And I felt that once Ruiz saw that early, he would be more in attack mode, because whenever he let the punches go, he was able to land pretty consistently and do so for the most part while getting out the way, and yet you didn't see it enough. To Gail's point, I saw uh, uh, a lot of comments on boxing Twitter, uh, somewhat displeased with his performance, even though he got the victory. Your analysis a few days after the fight, Daniel.
I did say last week that Ruiz, sorry, not Ortiz, has not been the same since that knockout that he suffered at the second Wilder fight. And it's done a little bit psychologically to Ortiz what the combination of the Dillian White and the Klitschko fights did to Anthony Joshua, which is it made him a little bit gun shy as far as the taking risks. And it showed a little bit, especially after this fight, especially after the second knockdown. Even though in the later rounds, because Ruiz was taking his foot off the gas pedal, probably thinking that the knockdowns were enough. They were enough, but barely to win the fight. And Ortiz was starting to land. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too late. He landed good, but he never pushed the issue enough where you can tell that Ruiz was in any sort of danger. Like even though his lefts was landing flush, even though his normal power punches for Ortiz were landing flush, you could tell it didn't have the same effect on Ruiz that it had on other fighters. And like I said, that's a combination of being gun shy. That's a combination of the age Ortiz has. So in a way, but I gotta give credit to him though. He barely, even with those 3 knockdowns, barely did enough to almost flip this card. Now, like I said, that is an indictment on Ruiz and not going for the gusto, at least trying to finish it off, because this is the lesson he has to learn. He cannot leave some fights in the hands of the judges, especially if you take your foot out the gas pedal. But this is probably the end of the line for Ortiz as far as being a top line contender. Like he could probably be like a mid card contender, or worst case, like a gatekeeper at this stage of his career, which is sad. Like he's one of the guys that should have gotten a shot much earlier than he did. He should have gotten the shot right after that knockout he had of Brian Jennings, but it didn't happen. And now, 5 years later, it's unfortunately what it is now.
Gail mentioned that Ruiz, that it looks like that Ruiz is going to fight Wilder if should Wilder be successful against Helenius October 15th. Wilder, he was in attendance for the Ruiz Ortiz fight. Actually went into the ring and gave a little comments and congratulated Ruiz on his performance. The question for both of you is, I know a part of this is contingent on how Wilder looks in his upcoming fight with Helenius. As we've seen videos and photos of him training, he looks quite smaller now as opposed to his third fight, his trilogy with a Fury, right? The muscle that he's put on, it looks like he's taken just about all of it off and back to his normal kind of thin a frame. But based on what we've seen from Wilder in his last fights, even up to that the 3-fight series with Tyson Fury, how would you think the shorter, at least, Ruiz would fare in a proposed fight with Deontay Wilder?
Ruiz will need to be mobile because Wilder's got that eraser punch. Now, Ruiz, as we've been talking about, has a good chin, a very good one. It's got to be great to stand up to Wilder. If Wilder hits him flush, That's going to be unlike any punch he's ever taken. I do think, though, that Ruiz can, if he is in condition and really paces himself well, can box Wilder. He is not a bad boxer. He's just a big-ass dude. I mean, that's never going to change. And everybody would like to think it might. No, it's not going to happen. And Ruiz Jr. firmly believes the reason he is able to take top flight heavyweight punching flush is his size. He says at this size, which is at about 270, that's exactly what he looked like when I went to see him in the gym, and bang, he was at 269 on the scale. So that's where he is. That's where it's at. But he does need to make sure his conditioning is on point and that he's not afraid to throw and move. And he also said in this fight, Ortiz being a southpaw really messed him up. He claimed that he never fought a southpaw as a professional. Now, I haven't scrubbed through BoxRec, and I will do that here now that I've just mentioned that. I find that very hard to believe that is true, first of all, and that was the reason that he seemed a little unsure of where he was going in the ring at the time. But that's his explanation, so I'll take it at face value. Wilder knows if he does face Ruiz after Hellenius, every fight for both these guys really is a do or die. It's the fork in the road in their careers. One path leads to staying relevant. The other path leads to gatekeeper, or maybe they decide they've got enough money and they retire. So stakes are high. I think it's a good fight, interesting. It's two Americans. Yes, Ruiz is Mexican born, but he is an American citizen. So I'm loving it. I'm all in.
Gail mentioned the weight, Daniel, talking about how Ruiz feels that at this weight he can take the punches better. But she also mentioned the movement. And I think at this weight he doesn't move as well. And you need to have good side to side and forward back movement against Wilder. That's the only way you're going to get away from him. If you don't, and if you're in range for his shots, particularly that right hand, you are in trouble. Can Ruiz frustrate Wilder with his speed, particularly on the inside? Yes, and he has a good jab, and I would argue he's a better overall boxer and technical fighter than Deontay Wilder. But as we all know, Bomb Squad, that's his nickname for a reason. He has that one giant eraser, and when he really decides to employ the jab and use it, I'm not going to say it's great, but it's effective. We saw it in the first Bermain-Stavern fight when he won the belt back years ago. And if he ever got back to that form using that left stick, that could spell even further trouble for Ruiz. Your thoughts on a proposed fight between the two?
This would be an interesting fight, an interesting contrast, because especially now with Wilder, with the way his body has been, because he bulked up because in Fury he was facing a taller, much heavier guy that was more than willing to use his weight against him. And facing Ruiz, he's facing a guy that's maybe a little bit smaller, maybe heavier, but doesn't use that weight to his advantage. And even though Ruiz can say the weight helps him out as far as taking punches, it also, affects his lateral movement. What it may not affect, though, and what may make it a little bit interesting for Wilder, is the hand speed. Remember, we saw how the hand speed affected Anthony Joshua when he landed the punches unexpectedly. And with Wilder, it could be the same case. Now, the main difference is that sleeper. That right hand has saved Wilder time and time again. It could save him again this time. And we just have to see how this situation with him, Malik Scott, is shaping up, because he went from trying to bulk up now to going back to slim down. And at this stage, at his age, We don't know how that is actually going to affect Wilder in general. That's why, luckily, we're going to see what's going to happen in the Hellenius fight. But with Ruiz, the other factor has to be also is, unfortunately, as much as I like Andy Ruiz, as much as his story is great, he can self-destruct outside of the ring so easily just by doing the wrong things. And if you're Wilder, you can count on some of that coming in. Even though with Ruiz, he probably understands this is him and Wilder was probably his last chance to get the belts back, to get a portion of the title that he lost, that he won and then lost it in almost a textbook fashion to Joshua. So it's going to be an interesting fight. I'll probably see a little bit more clear picture with Wilder after the Hellenius fight.
On the undercard here, you had Pitbull Cruz, Isaac Cruz, for those who don't know, fought former world title challenger, featherweight world title challenger, Eduardo Ramirez, Daniel. And when Pitbull Cruz stepped into the ring against Gervonta Davis December last year, really unknown. No one had never heard of him, right? But the night of that fight, he took the fight to Tank Davis, made him fight all the way, made him fight all night long, uh, troubled him at times. Even though Davis got the win, the stock of Isaac Cruz rose, and in the months since that fight, he's become more and more popular. He's become a fan favorite. Returned to the ring in April, just took apart your Yorkers Gamboa, stopped him in fifth. He fought again on the undercard of Ruiz Ortiz, fought Ramirez, and just blew the doors off of him, knocked him out in two. A year ago this time, he was little known, but now he's right in the thickets of the 135-pound landscape. Not only is he becoming a fan favorite, but based on what we've seen him in the ring, he's a legit threat at 135. Say what you want about Ramirez, but yeah, when you're trying to make a statement and when you try to get back into the title picture, and when all eyes are on you, he was impressive. Pit Bulls. That was just a 2-round destruction. He dog walked him.
Ooh. Yeah, that's an understatement. You could tell he was excited from the weigh-in.
He was a little menacing there and fought like it.
Yeah, like he did not take his eyes off his opponent. He's looking at him, mean mugging him. It had to be a point where they literally had to pull him away. But luckily, Isaac Cruz understands. He understands the situation. He knows he was really, really close to beating Tank. So that makes him a player in this division. Is it a situation where you could see him fight Tank again? Probably not. Floyd's probably not going to let that happen for a little bit. But does it put him in the picture for the winner of Haney Cambo's the Haney Camboso's Loma situation? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it looks like it's not going to be a situation where you can see him quickly outgrow the weight. He's a pretty stocky lightweight. But it's also not a situation you can tell it's not a situation where like he's starving himself to make lightweight. So that was a fun fight. That was a fun destruction. He enjoyed every second of that beatdown. And like I say, he's putting the division on notice. Yeah, Haney can talk all he wants. Ryan can talk all he wants. Tank can talk all he wants. If things shape up correctly, they all have to deal with him eventually. So good on Cruz for understanding the situation and capitalizing on it. Did we lose Mike?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was on mute. I go to you, Gail, quickly before we start splitting fights up here. Uh, Daniel mentioned how Cruz said he wanted a rematch with Tank, and Tank was in the building. He shook his head. Nah, I'll pass. He also mentioned Devin Haney. Haney, of course, is going to fight the rematch with Kambosos next month, and then should he win, he's more than likely going to fight Lomachenko. The question becomes, if he's not going to get Tank, and if he's not going to get Devin Haney, who would you like to see him in the ring with at 135?
Well, here's a problem. He's starting to run out of people over, in that universe, that PBC universe. Some of his better opponents are on the other side of the promotional aisle. So depends on what he wants to do. If he wants to move up, he's got a little more to play with. If not, who's out there? Well, I don't know if we would ever see Golden Boy getting involved. I doubt it. But, in my heart of hearts, I would love to see the winner of the upcoming Zepeda Jojo Diaz fight go up against Cruz. That'd be a barn burner in my little matchmaker dreams. But as long as he gets in there, looks as good and explosive and determined as he did, he may need to tap dance a little bit. But just because he can't get an opponent that he really deserves, he needs to stay busy. And that will keep people and fans excited about him. That'll raise his stock. That'll raise his drawing power. That is going to help lure more money and then more quality opposition into the ring with him. Good for him. He took this fight seriously. Yeah, he looked like a dog at that way, and he looked like a dog all week. He took this fight seriously. Lesson to everybody else. I have to say, I did get a huge kick out of Tank. They bring up Cruz and Tank in a rematch, and they get the camera on him in the crowd, and he smiled like, nah, I'm not going there again. I mean, it was almost an admission of, man, that guy was tough. I don't want none of that anymore. I've kind of found that lighthearted response refreshing and very honest. It seemed a very honest moment. I also want to back up and say I was very pleased how Deontay Wilder appeared during the broadcast. He looked to be in really good spirits. He was very talkative. He was very warm with the public. He greeted a lot of fans when he was there. Had a smile on his face. He looked good. I know everybody's commenting on his skinny little legs and losing weight. I was just pleased to see him in what looked like a very healthy, happy frame of mind. And Tank too. So bring on more Sunday night fights if that means all these guys are going to come out, enjoy themselves, and circulate with the fans. And just to put a PS on our previous conversation, after scouring BoxRec, it's absolutely true. In all his fights, Andy Ruiz had never faced a southpaw before Sunday.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that note there. In terms of Cruz, he had mean intentions during the weigh-in. He was serious as could be, and he brought that intensity during the fight. No games being played here as he went after Ramirez from opening belt and took him out. And I want to see who they put him in with next at 135. I like what I see of him. I like that meanness. I like the power that he brings to the ring. He's the type of guy that you want to see over and over again. Just a really, really entertaining fighter, and a good backstory too, with his upbringing as well as his family. Let's move over from LA. Took place on Sunday. That card too. Women's fight that took place in England. Gail, unification bout at 154 pounds. Natasha Jonas, who her claim to fame was at 130 and 135, lost to then WBC 130 champion Terry Harper. I felt that Jonas won that fight. And then she moved up to 135 and gave Katie Taylor one of her toughest battles Jonas and Taylor, old rivals from their amateur days. They fought as pros. As uh, Taylor, she won. She ended up beating Jonas to retain her undisputed lightweight titles. But as I mentioned, Jonas gave her a good tussle. Jonas has since moved up to 154 pounds. In her last outing, she won the WBO belt at junior middleweight. Followed that up with the fight against Patricia Berghult, who was WBC champion. Jonas ended up winning that, beating Berghult by decision. And yeah, the move up in weight, the move up 20 pounds essentially from 35 to 54 hasn't hurt her at all. She's fighting better than ever. She took the fight to Bergo orally, was right in her face for most of the fight, and pretty much had her way. Pretty dominant win here for Natasha Jonas. Uh, she's on a roll.
Boy, that move up was magic for her. It really was. She got a short, one round short of a complete shutout on all three cards. 100 to 90 on two, 99 to 91 on the third. I don't know where that one round, that's a mercy round to Berghold of Sweden. This is the fight Jonas always wanted to have. She has had so many narrow losses in big fights. And I thought she had beaten Harper, truthfully. A lot of people did. So for her to take control straight off the bell, this was a phone booth fight for a lot of it. She was very aggressive, very aggressive. Nothing like some of the fights we've seen her where, her long-standing amateur pedigree is, sort of taken over. This was a professional fight, and she completely outclassed Berghult. And to do it at home in Liverpool, it was just icing on the cake for her. So she now wants to, unify or become undisputed at super welterweight. So that means she's got to go after Maria Eve DeCare, who has the IBF belt. And Hannah Rankin has the WBA belt. I think she takes Hannah Rankin without a whole lot of trouble. Eve, I'm not 100% sure, but boy, the way she looked last night, I think she could do it. And, she has waited a long time for this kind of success. There were points where a lot of people thought she might retire. She's 38 years old. But, she kept at it. She believed in herself. After the fight, she said, "Tonight blew me away." And, she said she could hear her trainer, Joe Gallagher, in the corner the whole way, yelling at her. And she really thought she had lost more rounds than she did. Well, I don't think that was a bad thing. If that kept her aggressive and fighting the way she did, that's exactly what needed to happen. So, it's really a renaissance for Jonas, who's very well liked in the UK. And I think she needs to ride the success as long and hard and far as she can. She could drop back to welterweight if the right fight appeared, and she would love to avenge that loss to Harper. And that is a fight I'd love to see.
You mentioned that she wants to collect more belts at 154. She has an eye on the winner of the aforementioned Hannah Rankin, who's going to fight, ironically enough, Terry Harper, who's also decided to move up in weight. She's moving up from 130 all the way to 154. Rankin and Harper is going to fight on the undercard of Bival, and Gilberto Ramirez is going to fight in November 5th, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on the date. But yeah, that's her target. That's her target right now, and kudos to her because she looked terrific. She's looked terrific in her last couple of fights. I see Daniel, you're back now. Let's move on to talk about some more action, and let's go from England to south of the border, Mexico to be specific, where you saw the return of Juan Francisco Estrada. fought a guy by the name of Argi Cortes. When this bout was announced, I wrote about it at 3kingsboxing.com. Please check out 3kingsboxing.com, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the crew over there. The man behind 3KB, Prodigy of Boxing, aka 2K, head of media relations, Bo, who has been on the guest numerous times here. I host a Twitter space with him for Three Kings Boxing. The rest of the staff, senior writer Bakari, Jarrell, aka Big Cool, Red, who does all the editing and a lot of the work on the site behind the scenes. Check out again Three Kings Boxing, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. When I wrote about Estrada and Cortes, Daniel, I thought this was just going to be a simple tune-up, no sweat, as Estrada in line for the trilogy against Roman Gonzalez. We'll talk about that in a bit. But to my surprise, Cortes made Estrada work. Won a lot of the early rounds. Estrada rallied, put him down in the 7th round by way of a body shot. However, he separated himself, but not to a great degree. He ended up getting the decision. Was this a case, Daniel, of Gallo taking him lightly, not bringing his A game? Your thoughts on the fact that not just that Estrada won, but the fact that Cortes gave him such a tough battle.
This was fun. This was a fun fight. And number one, what we should have known that this was going to be a burner when I saw Nacho Berenstein on Cortez's corner. You know, when somebody's trained by Nacho, they're going to bring it. And that encapsulated Cortes very, very well in the early rounds. He was landing flush, landing rights, landing good combinations, catching Gallo a little bit and disturbing his rhythm until that body shot. Really up to no, Cortes was pretty much befuddling Gallo until probably the middle of the 3rd round. I think it was in that point, the middle of the 3rd or middle of the 4th, where he had Gallo on the ropes, and Gallo just pretty much said, okay, let's just go. This isn't a boxing match anymore. This is a fight. And they just started exchanging. And from that point, Gallo's accuracy went up. Gallo's ring generalship went up, and it made it a fun fight. The main difference probably is, I don't think it was more of the fact that he was distracted thinking it's a tune-up. It's probably more the fact that you tend to look fights ahead, because we saw what happened immediately after the decision, the announcement for December 3rd, him in a trilogy with Chocolatito. And we know how much that has bothered Gallo, getting that first the rematch and now getting the trilogy, because in both of the previous fights, you can make an honest case that the other guy won, but the guy that didn't get the decision is the guy that won. I still make the case that in the first fight, Gallo won. Just like people will say it, and I will agree to a certain point, that Chocolatito won the second fight, but Gallo won in the cards. So that was probably more in his mind, but that should teach us something. Even when it's all Mexican fighters, they're going to bring it. They know the opportunities that come into it. Should we remind people of Mauricio Lara? Long undershot, going all the way to UK, was supposed to be a tune-up for Josh Warrington. What happened to Josh Warrington? At the hands of Mauricio Lara, to the point where I think he's afraid to face Lara ever again.
Think he is.
No, I don't think Warrington is. Hearn definitely is. But that's the point. You can never count something out, even when it looks like it's a tune-up, because they understand what's at stake. Cortes was pretty close. If he just would have kept the same level of intensity in the first 5 rounds on up, he would have upset the apple cart really, really well. Just like he would have probably not as young, obviously, so it wouldn't have been such of a shock. He would have been in the next Bam Rodriguez in that sense. Guy that wasn't supposed to win it, but it was good for trying. Suddenly he puts himself right in the middle of the pack of arguably the best division in the sport. So I have to give kudos to him, but luckily Gaia was able to guide it through, was able to take control in the latter half of the fight. But this should be a warning to him. Like, don't think ahead. Don't try to think ahead of the fight, because now you have your trilogy, but you saw how close it came to slipping out of his hands.
Indeed, Gail. I'll go to you right quick. It was announced right after the fight that Estrada is going to fight Roman Gonzalez in the third fight, December 3rd. In the days afterwards, given your sources, your inside information, have you heard anything in terms of locale, building, any further details on the trilogy?
Well, the first fight was canceled when Roman came down with COVID. It was rescheduled, and to my absolute thrill, it was scheduled for Pachanga Arena, San Diego. And then Gallo came down with COVID. So that was the fight in which Gonzalez took care of business with Julio Cesar Martinez, just a masterclass. Wasn't quite the Estrada fight, but believe me, I was pleased. So in this fight, went to Estrada, and the immediate announcement was for December 3rd. I ran to my screen to check the schedule in San Diego. It will not be here because the minor league hockey San Diego Gulls have a game December 3rd. However, there are no bookings on December 3rd for either the Forum in Los Angeles or, wait for it, StubHub in Carson. Please, boxing gods, give us Estrada Chocolatito 3 at Carson, California at the War Grounds. I beg you. That is a match made in boxing heaven. We could only hope that comes to pass. I wouldn't be surprised to see it at the Forum. I really wouldn't be horribly surprised to see it in Las Vegas, but I doubt it. I think the alternative to Southern California is probably Texas. Or possibly on the outside, Phoenix or Tucson, although I do not think so. And hey, Arizona's getting that big Jake Paul Anderson Silva fight, so they don't deserve it. Oh, you knew I was going to sneak it in there.
Anderson Silva's going to box the mess out of him. But anyway, I don't want to see the trilogy in Vegas, to be honest with you. I want some real fans, some hardcore heads in the building. Vegas could 100%. Vegas could be a little bit too sophisticated and too bougie when it comes to the crowd, the participation, the level of noise. I want raucous. I want hell raising for 12 rounds, both in and out of the ring. The fight deserves it.
Let me tell you, you would pack Carson, which has a stated maximum attendance of about 8,000. You can add bleacher seats and standing room, and it got to just a shade over 10,000 for its all-time record when Gennady Golovkin fought Marco Antonio Rubio. And I have never been in a more wild environment than the fight that night. But I think this trilogy fight might surpass that. And the hardcore would be there. It's an affordable venue. Although in our boxing universe, these guys are elite stars of the sport. They're not the money stars. They don't draw the $17 million gate of a Fury Wilder 3. So this is a much more practical venue, and it's just the right place. It is also the place where Sor Rungvisai knocked Chocolatito out cold, and that was his last appearance there. So we'll see. However, Estrada's last fight in Southern California was at the Forum. So I would place my money on one of those two with a Texas venue like San Antonio It's maybe the outside choice. But you know what? As long as it happens, I'm happy.
Going back to you, Gail, to talk about this last fight on the recap segment. Last episode, I talked about how Zhilei Zhang and Philip Hergovich surprised me in terms of how good it turned out to be. It's one of the fights of the year. I argue the best heavyweight fight of 2022 so far. Another fight, and in this fight, that we're getting ready to talk about now, really, really under the radar, didn't get much attention, right? Fight for IBF, vacant IBF, junior flyweight strap. South African fighter by the name of Nontshings fought Hector Flores, and people were not talking about it before, but man was boxing Twitter talking about it afterwards, because what a battle. Nontshings ended up getting the win by decision, to become the only current world champion from South Africa. But man, did Flores come with it all night long. He was like an energizer bunny, fighting through blood pouring over his face, from damage to the eye, to the nose. At one point, I thought the South African would quit because just the amount of pressure that Flores was bringing to him, just nonstop. But he found the second win. He found that reserve, that toughness. And in the end, what we saw was just sensational action round 1 to 12. Uh, Zhilei Zhang in that fight with Hergovich is one of the fights of the year. Put this fight in that category as well, Gail. Sensational stuff.
You know, we all at this show and many of our colleagues respect and love the fighters in the smaller weight divisions. They just simply do not get the attention they deserve. You know, a lot of people say as the heavyweight division goes, so goes boxing. And all the attention is on, you know, a lot of these bigger fighters. They're flashier, you know, the knockouts seem bigger, everything seems bigger. But the real action, the real drama is in these smaller weight divisions. There is much more activity. They throw more punches. Pound for pound, I'd love to figure out how to measure punching power per size. They throw every bit as hard as their bigger brothers and sisters, for that matter, given their weight. And it's just nonstop. You know, the complaint about Ruiz and Ortiz was what? Too slow, too boring. You were never at the elite level going to say that about a smaller weight division fight. And this one exemplifies exactly what we love about it. And these guys went after each other with a nothing to lose attitude. I mean, it was all or nothing for both of them. In particular, Nontshings, you know, really was in so many ways carrying the weight of an entire country on his shoulders. We forget that about fighters who are not from the UK or Japan or Mexico or North America. You know, they are superstars in their country. This is the way out of poverty for so many of them. When he won this fight, the entire nation erupted in celebration. I encourage you to go Google the name, Google news accounts from South Africa. I mean, he is front page news. But he was having a rough go through the middle. It was such an even fight. And we got one of the trainer speeches right up there with Angelo Dundee and Teddy Atlas right before the championship rounds, the last 3 rounds. The trainer said to him, remember your family, remember your children. You have 9 minutes to change your life. And he did.
That was awesome.
This is what we live for. You know, it's amazing. Boxing in so many ways is such an emotional sport. You know, we criticized a few weeks ago Anthony Joshua's sort of tirade after he lost to Alexander Usyk. But that's because he was so emotional at the loss. It matters that much. And it's rare you see it in other sports. We just saw it with Francis Tiafoe in the US Open. This to me is what sport is all about. It's the people that are in boxing absolutely putting their health on the line for our entertainment. And for me, it's an honor to see a fight like this. I honor him. I can't wait to see what he does next. And heck, I want to see Hector Flores again too. Does the rest of the world know who they are? Would anyone in North America know who they are if they walk down the street? No, but they should. And let me add,
Absolutely. Go ahead.
if you have DAZN and you didn't watch it, go back right now and watch this fight. I'm telling you, well, you can do it after the show. Make sure you watch this fight from front to back. If you don't have DAZN, I'm sure there are large sections, chunks, highlights, perhaps even in a whole fight. I won't point you to anything in particular, but come on, folks, you're all smart. You know how to find things. Go watch this fight.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would love to see
Yep.
these two running back was the sensational stuff, but I haven't checked out that part of the celebration, but I'm sure it's heartwarming and given Nontshings came in with the reputation as power. He showed skill and heart as well as this, and it looks like he's going to have some staying power in that division, no doubt about it. And I affirm Gail's suggestion, strong suggestion that if you have DAZN, please go back and check out that fight. Again, you will be certainly thoroughly entertained. Let's move on to some news here. I'm gonna switch it up here in terms of what I said in the docket. Let's stick at 108 pounds, Daniel. This news broke late last week. I wrote about it again for Three Kings Boxing. Um, the Nontshings and Flores was for the vacant IBF belt. Well, also at junior flyweight, you're going to have a unification bout. Followers of the lower ranked divisions been talking about this potential matchup for years, and it's finally going to happen. WBA champion Hiroto Kyoguchi, WBC champion Kenshiro Terai. They're going to fight November the 1st. Location hasn't been finalized, but the two have agreed to get it on. And both, excuse me, at the top of the game, Kyoguchi, many fight fans saw him last time in Mexico. He just beat up Esteban Bermudez in Bermudez's home country of Mexico, stopped him in 8 to retain the title. A lot of us super hardcore fans, like the three of us, we was in a private group on Zoom and saw Taraji's last outing, 3-4 in the morning East Coast time, as he stopped Masamichi Yabuki in a rematch to regain the WBC strap, one of the knockouts of the year. Stopped him in 3. Style matchup is there. The interest is there, particularly in Japan. Sets up to be a big bout in that nation. The bout that a lot of us have wanted to see, Daniel, it's finally going to take place.
I am actually surprised this is not New Year's Eve. This is one of the type of fights that warrants New Year's Eve in Japan. Because, first of all, it's one of these fights that when I first saw the announcement, I didn't tweet it yet, but whenever something happens that was long overdue, I tend to tweet the meme of LeBron James, the first championship, saying it's about damn time. This earns us about that time, especially the way after Kenshiro regained his title. Because we were afraid for a little bit after he lost it that he may have lost his spark a little bit, and unfortunately that happens a lot of times to fighters after having their first loss, especially following a good undefeated streak. But no, we're going to get this fight, and we're probably getting it in realistically at the right time. Both of these guys coming in after strong performances, and both of them not going to have any issues as far as, oh, you have this O to lose, oh, you're too old in this front. They're fighting each other now, probably realistically now at the right time, where both of them can come in show their best, especially now it's coming November 1st. When is November 1st? Is it a Friday or Saturday? Because I know Japanese fighters sometimes they do happen during the week. So I'm not looking at the calendar yet because I'm driving, but it's tantalizing in a way how much the lower weight divisions are giving us now really, really high caliber fights at such a short amount of time. This year has been probably the year that the little guys pretty much took over for as much of the highlights that have come into this. And I am enjoying every second of it. This is probably one of those fights where I'm probably going to have to wake up early, even if it's during the weekday, to watch it. And even though we know it's after Halloween here in the States, we know it's going to be plenty early, and I'm going to be there watching it, whether it's on my laptop or I'll find a way to put it on my TV.
So, Daniel, how surprised would you be to find out that November 1st is a Tuesday?
Of course, it's a Tuesday. Of course. Why? Okay, Japan, I need to know. Why do the Japanese insist on putting high caliber, almost pretty much dream fights on Tuesdays?
It's the same reason NFL games are played every damn night of the week. Same for Japan. That's a big sporting event there.
Either way, I'm gonna find a way to put it on my TV.
Oh,
Shoot the laptop. I'm putting that thing on my TV.
Set your alarms, y'all. You can handle being up for an hour and then go back to bed if you need to.
Indeed. So yeah, I'm amped up about this one. There's a good chance I'll be covering it live for Three Kings Boxing. Stand up pulling an all-nighter to check out their fight, but I'm not mad one bit. I will enjoy doing so. I wouldn't be surprised if that same group that had in which we watched Terai Junior 2, I wouldn't be surprised if they do a live group viewing of that fight. I wish it was on DAZN because the WBA champion Kyoguchi has a deal with DAZN. If DAZN was smart, they would try to pick up that fight, but I doubt it. It's a Japanese fight. It's a Japanese event, and they have precedent. They have precedent above all. So yeah, November 1st, long awaited unification bout between Kenshiro and Kyoguchi. It is finally going to happen. Let's move on to some other news here. Going to you, Gail, and the excitement of that announcement, right? I hate to be a downer here, but in the time from my last episode to tonight's live recording here, recording this on September the 6th, had a tragedy in our sport. Historians like to say that the 1970s was the best era for heavyweight boxing. One of the mainstays of that era, a guy who's considered one of the hardest punchers in the history of the sport, one Earnie Shavers, passed away last week at the age of 78. Shavers, he fought them all. He fought Holmes twice. He fought Ali, fought Jimmy Young. He fought Ron Lyle, right? Just about any prominent name in that era, in that division, he faced them. Ali said Shavers was the hardest guy who ever hit him. Holmes said the same. When he put Holmes down in that second fight, Holmes fell like a tree. He went timber. You thought he wasn't going to get up, but he did. For the younger sect, right? For those unaware about the boxing life of Earnie Shavers. I give you the floor to talk about him right now.
We watched the Destroyer Andy Ruiz this Sunday. Well, Shavers' nickname was the Black Destroyer because he was such a powerful puncher. It's 68 knockout wins in his career. 68, 6-8. Let that rest on your head a little bit. 68 wins by knockout. Now, not to throw any shade at the current unified heavyweight champion, Alexander Usyk, he has, I think, 11 professional fights. Think about that for a second. He ended his career, Shavers, with a 74-14-1 record. A native of Alabama, like Deontay Wilder, and he did fight everybody. He came in up in that era with all the great names. So Ali, Holmes, Norton. He fought at the Garden. He fought at Caesar's Palace. And every one of those men all talked about Shavers' punching power. Just a phenomenon. He and those fighters were so busy and so active in that era. You know, it's hard for us to comprehend. He won 33 straight bouts with 32 knockouts in 3 years. 3 years. Do the math. 3 years, 33 fights. That's insane. A heavyweight's considered busy if they have 2 or 3 fights. Andy Ruiz talked after his win on Sunday about wanting to be active and fight 3 times in a year. Shavers would have done that in a couple of months. And certainly things have changed, but he delivered a tremendous amount of entertainment. Those losses, again, for that era, it just wasn't looked at in the same way that we do today. So Shavers may not be the first man that comes to mind when we talk about the glory of the heavyweight era, the glory years of the 70s, but he deserves to be up there. When his death was reported, it was reported that although he was 78, you know, he'd lived a good long life, but that he had indeed had a very hard career and at the very end kind of slowed down quickly. You know, boxing is a tough business. He was also an accomplished amateur champion. I believe he was the national amateur champion in 1969 before he turned pro. And I always loved this quote, which was in a profile in Ring magazine. When he's always asked, you know, where do you rate your punching power? Where do you think you stand in history? And he would always say, number one, no one can outpunch me except God. And he'd also become an evangelist, ordained Christian minister. So that was a very appropriate comment. So we all honor that career. You know, from our lens today, looking back at it, you have to look back in just sheer amazement because the landscape of boxing has changed so much since his era. I really don't think we'll see the likes of Earnie Shavers and his colleagues again. So rest in power, Mr. Shavers.
Absolutely. Will he ever be considered the best during his era or in the annals of the history of the heavyweight division? No. But he will always be remembered for the fights that he took place, for his fights, and again, the power. If you know, you know, as people like to say. So, on behalf of Gail and Daniel, we here at Pound for Pound Box Report, thoughts and prayers, condolences to his family and loved ones. Again, during our time off, perennial heavyweight contender Earnie Shavers passed away at age 78. May he rest in power. I'll go to you, Daniel, on that bit of sad note to get back on the train here. Bit of interesting developments over the past few days. We talked about Tyson Fury a lot on this show. We'll talk about him again, right? The situation concerning Usyk, and he says he will fight Usyk. A lot of people feel that he will not. Well, over the past 48 hours, the one and only Gypsy King has gone on video numerous times on his social media platforms and said that he's made an offer that he's interested in the fight first off with Anthony Joshua for December. Of course, we all know Joshua's coming off of the rematch loss to Usyk. Joshua went on social media to say, if you're really interested, send an offer. Fury earlier today went on his IG. You can check it out on his IG stories. It should still be up. He said that he has sent a official offer to AJ 60-40. I think Eddie Hearn has said that this is true, but he doesn't know how serious it is. Frank Warren has said something as well about it. What do you make of Fury? This offer, talking about a fight with AJ as early as December of this year.
Well, I'm not surprised that Fury is talking within the last 48 hours. Well, he's been talking technically over the last 96 hours, technically, because we saw the video of him lambasting Usyk for not wanting to fight this year, even though we fully understand probably the reason why Usyk doesn't want to fight again this year. But then Fury did something interesting. He decided to attend WWE's first pay-per-view in the United Kingdom in 30 years. Clash at the Castle. It was in Wales, Cardiff. And he was there, front row. He made various cameo appearances and even participated. He knocked out a guy by the name of Austin Theory. And did it in the ways like you just have to watch the video to do it. And what was interesting is that he was actually involved in the post pay-per-view press conference. He was sitting alongside like a fellow person UK, even though he's not really British, he's Scottish, but named Drew McIntyre. And those two were jabbing back and forth. And interesting enough, I forgot who the reporter was, but it's from Esquire magazine. He actually went and asked Fury, he's like, we know that you're busy, that you had videos before. And he asked plainly, is your next time in the ring going to be in the WWE ring in Saudi Arabia? Or is the next time going to be in the ring is going to be against Alexander Usyk in Jeddah? And that's when Fury pretty much let it out there. Same thing that he said in the video. Oh, I challenged Usyk to fight this year. He doesn't want to fight this year. I don't want to wait. I'll announce a fight. I'm going to announce my next fight next week. That was, folks, last Saturday, September 3rd. That would technically mean that this weekend, Tyson Fury should make an announcement. And unfortunately, to me, the whole Joshua scenario, it's probably a way for people to get hyped up and for people to say when Fury's actual opponent gets announced, oh, well, he tried to get AJ, well, he tried to get Usyk. But this is what it wound up, this is what he got on short notice. So I don't think everything is really serious to fight right now, AJ, at this stage. I really doubt that AJ's team, Eddie Hearn, would, especially looking at how AJ reacted to the loss of Usyk, even as emotional as it was, get pointed out, it was still bad. That they would immediately take a fight against somebody like Tyson Fury, somebody that is bigger than AJ, heavier than AJ, more skilled than AJ. He's just pretty much a slower version of Alexander Usyk, but bigger and heavier, and can probably Klitschko him effectively. So it is he's probably serious about fighting. It's probably not going to be AJ, but like I said, in that press conference at Cardiff, he telegraphed his move.
And back to our previous discussion about Earnie Shavers, we'll give a shout out to EJ Boxing Live. I want to share it here publicly for the YouTube audience once again. He says, "Rest in peace, Earnie Shavers, the Black Acorn." Of course, that was Shavers' nickname. Ali gave him that nickname before their fight, a reference to Shavers' a bald head. So yeah, again, once again, our thoughts and prayers to the family, friends, loved one of Earnie Shavers. Quick word, Gail, on the talk on Fury's talk of fighting AJ. Do you think there's some meat on the bone, or is this is just bloviating on the part of the Gypsy King?
Oh, sure, there's meat on the bone, or maybe there's not. Fury is full of a lot of noise. In boxing, no matter who it is that's talking, I want to see the signatures on the contracts and the announcement made and the dates. It's like they say to women claiming they're engaged. You don't have a ring and a date, it's not for real.
Short and sweet, short and sweet.
I can say that. I can say that. And hey, EJ, it's good to hear from you.
Let's move on to preview some fights here. Big women's card, big ladies card over at the O2 Arena in London. It's been 2022 has been a fantastic year for women's boxing. Of course, we just talked about Jonas and Berghult. We all remember the fight in April. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano in front of a nearly sold out building at the big garden over in New York. Jessica McCaskill, she's moving down in weight to fight Chantel Cameron in November on the undercard of, I think on the undercard of Bival and Zerto. Um, and it continues with this card at the O2 Arena, headlined, of course, by the fight for all the belts at 160 pounds. The self-titled GWOAT, Claressa Shields, holds 3 of the titles, BA, IBF, BC. She's fighting Savannah Marshall, who holds the WBO. Going back to you on this one, Gail. Look, Shields, her record, her accomplishment since she turned pro, right? It cannot be questioned, right? She's been unified champ. She was unified champion at 168 pounds. She was undisputed champion at 168, undisputed champion at 154. She holds 3 belts now at 160, right? And no, excuse me, she was previous undisputed at 160. She's held titles at 168. She was undisputed at 154. She's going back up to 160, gained 3 of the belts. And but if there's one bugaboo really going back to her amateur days, it is one Savannah Marshall, who gave Shields her only defeat in a boxing ring back when the two ladies were amateurs at the 2012 World Championships. Fans have called for years for these two to fight. They've talked a lot of trash to each other, both in interviews, on social media, and in front of each other. We finally get to see the fight. It's the two best fighters, I believe, from 154 to 160. If Taylor and Serrano is not the most anticipated women's fight of the year, it's certainly this bout right here. Um, I just wanted to live up to the hype, given all the talk, all the back and forth between the two. Um, I just hope they bring it. Shields is the faster, more athletic fighter. I will argue Savannah Marshall is the harder hitter. I just want to see these two ladies get it on, bring their best foot forward. the keys, in your opinion, for both women on the 10th?
I love a grudge match. I love something that's been simmering like this. You know, the pot's been on the stove, just like a little low boil, and we're finally going to get it. This is one of those fights where letting it marinate is normally a verb I absolutely hate. It works here. It works because we've gotten the nice buildup of both of their careers as professionals since their amateur days. You know, this was a long time ago. And that one loss for Shields, she avenged it and then some because um, she lost prior to the Olympics. And then uh, Marshall was taken out in the Olympics. And then Shields took out the Kazakh fighter that beat Marshall. Um, in their first Olympics. So she's had her revenge, and they never met up again in the amateur ranks because either Marshall didn't make it to the finals. You know, Shields after that one loss never lost again. They were either on other tracks, they were competing. Marshall lost, so this is that one admittedly very small blemish on Shields' career, and she feels she can erase it and get her revenge by a win. So she'll be highly motivated. So will Marshall, because Marshall's achievements all along have certainly not equaled Claressa's. Nobody would pretend they would, but she's got this one little blemish to play with. It's like a little sore. She can just pick at it. She knows she can. She's been playing the psychological game very well. She has done fairly well as a pro. I would argue that Marshall has been a better professional fighter than she was an amateur. She's got some legitimate power too, which is what makes this very interesting. Marshall, you know, in her last few fights, you know, it is a dangerous thing to call any professional women's boxer a knockout artist. And you could say that about Christy Martin. You could say that about Ann Wolfe. That's for darn sure. But Savannah Marshall is undefeated as a pro at 12-0 with 10 knockouts. And that is extraordinary for a women's fighter. So that makes this very interesting. She's not nearly as accomplished as Shields. She's not, you know, Shields is very accomplished in her boxing skills. Her offensive skills have greatly improved. But it's one of those fights where if Marshall catches her unaware or not paying attention, she could be in a world of hurt because Marshall does have legitimate power. She is taller than Shields by 3 inches, and she's got an edge on her in reach. Makes it a very interesting fight. I think it's a 55-45 fight. It's not a 50-50 fight. I still give Shields the edge. But I do think it's going to go to Shields, but I think it's going to really test her. Shields has been knocked down. She's vulnerable to it. You know, we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued by this fight, but and I see EJ. I agree with you. I think Shields will prevail. I do think it will be close. Marshall could get lucky, and Marshall is capable of a knockout win, which would be a thunderclap in the world of women's professional boxing, but I don't think that will happen. But if it is a good, close fight, yeah, maybe we get to see it again.
Before I go to you, Daniel, EJ Boxing Live. I appreciate you for checking us out, particularly since you are over there in the UK right now. So I know it's late night or early morning over your time. He said the live YouTube chat, he has Shields by points. That's a lot. I'm hearing a lot of that from folks in checking now boxing social media. Daniel, um, your analysis, your breakdown of this fight for all the belts at 160.
It's going to be a test of skills versus power. And we've seen how rounds being 2 minutes has affected Claressa in many ways. Like, if there's some fights that if the rounds were 3, she probably would have gotten some more knockouts in her record. It may actually benefit her this time because Savannah Marshall has power that can legitimately crack, that can hurt both men and women. And we have to face facts also. She has been able to get under Claressa's skin. And yeah, it is, some people can say it's fairly easy to do so with Claressa Shields a lot at times, but she has that one amateur win against Shields hovering over it. But Shields, for all the grandiose stuff that she said, all of sometimes the missteps that she's taken when it comes to me, she's smart enough to understand the situation that she has in front of her, where it's not just unifying a division completely. Is the fact that you're going into the backyard of your opponent and you're not going to have a lot of backup as far as support going in. So, but even though Marshall has produced a good amount of knockouts, Claressa's also fought fairly well. And sometimes when she does get cracked a little bit, she adjusts and starts boxing instead of trying to brawl. And that may be the case here. I expect Marshall to land something pretty clean early on, and then Claressa will make the adjustment. The main thing that's probably going to play a factor is how much is Marshall going to push to get the knockout. If she pushes too much, that leaves plenty of room to Claressa to outbox her. And I can legitimately see Claressa, same thing as I agree with EJ. Same thing. She'll win it by points. Probably going to be a couple of close calls. But in the end, she's probably going to be more composed in the ring. And the eagerness of Marshall might not work to her benefit.
And we see some more comments here. Shout out to EJ. Shout out to Intangible Boxing News. I'm going to share his prediction in a bit. I'm going back to you, Daniel, to talk about this co-main event. If talked about the bad blood between Shields and Marshall at 160. It's equal amount of bad blood at 130 pounds between unified IBF WBO champion Mikaela Mayer and WBC champion Alycia Baumgardner. If you checked out the boxing socials today, if you checked out Sky Boxing, their live Twitter page, you saw the two ladies, Mayer and Baumgardner, had a little bit of face-to-face meeting today, ending in a handshake. They have folks talking, particularly when it comes to the pythons of Alycia Baumgardner. She got some arms on her that will put a lot of dudes to shame, right? They don't like each other. Baumgardner has talked throughout the lead up how she's going to dog walk Mayer. Mayer has talked about how she's going to take Baumgardner to deep waters. I'm just as intrigued and interested in this fight as I am in the quote unquote main event. If they bring it, it should be a fantastic fight, just like the main event. I just want these two ladies to bring their best foot forward. I asked Gail about her keys for Marshall and for Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall. I'm asking you now your keys for Mikaela Mayer, Alycia Baumgardner.
The main key is, can Mikaela use her height and reach to her advantage against somebody like Baumgardner? because Baumgardner has one thought in her mind: knocking Mikaela out. And Mikaela has to be very, very aware of that, and she has to use her vantage height, has to use her vantage reach to be able to maintain and win out, especially when remember she's at 130 pounds. Amanda Serrano's right next door, and so is
There'll be a
Katie
fun
Taylor.
fight of power hitters right there.
Yeah, so that's one area where she knows what she can get. It's either Katie Taylor or Amanda Serrano when it comes to Mikaela. But from Baumgardner, I'm probably going to call for the upset here. I'm going to say Baumgardner is probably going to win because sometimes looking for the knockout can get you hurt, but sometimes that determination can get you what you want. And I like Mikaela. She's done really well as a fighter. She's proved well. But we've seen how much has affected her last fight. She had a similar style, somebody coming in forward, and while she was able to handle it well, probably didn't have the power that Baumgardner has in those pythons that you mentioned. So to me, probably Baumgardner's probably going to pull off the upset. It would upset the apple cart for Bob, but I'm pretty sure that Eddie will be pretty happy that she'll get in that front. And I agree, Mark, in that front. She is a better fighter overall. That's why I want her to use her intangibles to win it. But sometimes you can be the better fighter, but the better puncher sometimes wins out.
To Mark Jones's point, and I'll put it up here for those who are checking us out on other platforms other than YouTube. He says that Baumgardner does one thing: use the right hand from mid-range. She requires room to punch. Mayer is the much better end fighter and will deny her that. Mayer is she's more complete. I know Baumgardner Gail has talked about how she's a boxer. She will show her boxing skills on the night, but I haven't seen her be a real inside fighter. She's going to have to press the action to win. I don't think she's going to win in just a pure boxing contest with Mayer, whose hands are just as fast, if not faster, particularly short punches, right? And who has longer arms and a real good jab. She has to take initiative, Baumgardner, from moment one, um, and land something hard and something hard early to get Mayer's attention and respect and put some fear into her, right? But that's just my analysis. I haven't given a prediction yet. Your thoughts on the fight, the breakdown, please.
I agree with what's already been said about this fight. Baumgardner has to be the Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz with the big right hand. That's what she needs to look for. She doesn't need to waste a whole lot of time. She cannot beat Mayer boxing. She cannot box her. She needs to be aggressive, get in her face, and get in position, if at all possible, to land that right hand. And then she does have legit power, and she can knock Mayer down. That'll help her overcome the natural advantage that Mayer will have if she simply boxes round by round and picks up the scores. Because Mayer is the better boxer skill-wise. She is not particularly powerful. What's interesting is, as we saw with her fight against Hamadouche, she is willing to get in there and trade. She does not want to do that with Baumgardner. She's very lucky to have survived Hamadouche, who just absolutely came at her with everything but the kitchen sink. I mean, would imagine Baumgardner's watched that fight many times. I hope she has.
Right.
Coach Al needs to make sure to keep Mayer from getting into a firefight like that, or it's going to be much harder and not go well for her. I do think there is a potential of an upset here. And I really love it when both fighters have a mean streak and honest to God hate each other. And their hate is real, people. Their hate is real. This is not for the promotion. This is not for the cameras. They talk plenty of shit about each other, and I love it.
Yeah, to your point, Gail, it's not just I mentioned the python, the arms. It's not just that. You can tell by Baumgardner just looking her complete body. She's a strong and explosive athlete from head to toe. Well developed, muscular upper body, but she has some shape and strength and power in her legs as well. We saw it in the fight against Harper where she was just came in there, wasn't really known, but just overpowered Harper, stunned him with the first shot and just had her buzzing all night long until she ended the fight and won the title, literally knocking Harper out on her feet. Her first defense was what went the distance, but yeah, Mayer, she can't stand in there and trade with Baumgardner in the same way against Ahmadou. That's just not would not be smart on her part. She has to box. She has to fight at range. She can get inside on spots, but she has to be in and out, side to side, use angles, just be smart in her approach, be smart and calculated in her method of attack. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask the both of you for your predictions on both of these fights, your official predictions. But I'm going to go around here and read the comments. Shout out to EJ Boxing Live. Shout out to Mark Jones. Shout out to Intangible Boxing. I'm going to read some of the comments here. Go back once again. EJ says that Claressa Shields on points. He also says he has Gardner winning on the points. Intangible Boxing says he has Shields and Mayer winning. EJ also says he has Claressa Shield. He says, yeah, I should have noted that. But yeah, for those who were wondering, for years you couldn't find the amateur bout between Shields and Marshall on YouTube, but now you can. Skyboxing, who's going to air this fight live in concert with ESPN Plus. If you go to check out Sky Sports YouTube channel, you can find that amateur bout with Savannah Hanna, the only loss of Shields' career, amateur or pro. So please, I advise you do that. What he also says, you can clear, in his opinion, EJ, he said you can clearly see that Claressa Shields won that amateur fight, but didn't get the decision. Some more comments here, some more comments from Mark Jones. He says, I mentioned the fact that he mentioned that Baumgardner does one thing, is that's just shoot the right hand, and Mayer is the more complete and better inside fighter. He also says that Baumgardner has a puncher's chance, and Mayer does get hit. Mayer is a more complete fighter. I agree. I'm going to go around the panel here. Go for first to you, Gil, and then to you, Daniel. Your official prediction: Claressa Shields, Savannah Marshall, Mikaela Mayer, and Alycia Baumgardner.
I do think the favorites pull it out. I think it's going to be a lot closer than both of them would like to believe. I think they'll both get buzzed and threatened by the power punchers in front of them, but they're experienced enough. They've got the right advisors with them to help keep their heads on straight and not get into a brawl. So I do see decision wins, close ones, both for Shields and Mayer. And I see, Mark, you're calling for a split decision for Shields, and I think you're absolutely right, because the British judges are going to give a hard look to Marshall. And if Shields wins a split decision, that is going to piss her off if she thinks she won. And maybe that gets us a rematch if it's a good fight. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. But make no mistake, I don't think we're going to see blowouts on the cards like we did with Erica Cruz earlier this week. I think things are going to be very close scorecards for both women who win. And both of the opponents. Both happen to be power punchers. So, we're going to need to be on our edge of our seats for the punch that can change the fight right up to the end. But I don't think it will happen.
And of course, this is Mark Jones, who I believe, I think this is the same Mark Jones from Boxing Jones. Excellent, excellent site. If you check out his Twitter page, there are a few who devote the attention and has the respect and the reverence for women's boxing that he does. So please check out his Twitter page at Boxing Jones and his site, boxingjones.com. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your prediction for Claressa Shields, Savannah Marshall, and as well as Alycia Baumgardner. Mikaela Mayer, Alycia Baumgardner.
I agree that Claressa will probably get the decision. It'll probably be a split decision. You never trust UK judges on the UK card with a UK fighter on the card, particularly against an American. So I would not be surprised if there's some chicanery, but to me, Claressa will probably do enough, and she's probably patient enough to not get caught, truly get caught with a haymaker by Marshall. On the other hand, I did say a little before, I'm going for the upset. I'm saying Baumgardner wins. Because, unfortunately, one of the things that Mikaela, it's one of the flaws, a lot of flaws that fighters have, is that she will get into a fight if she feels like the other fighters are taking her seriously. That's what happened with Hamadouche. And you cannot do that with somebody like Baumgardner. And Baumgardner has already shown with a fighter that's taller than her, she can land, and she can land fairly well. You mentioned Terry Harper. We literally saw Terry Harper's brain reboot standing up in real time, caused by Baumgardner. That can happen with Mikaela too, because she does have a bit of pride, and I know sometimes she does resent like being called like one of the pretty girls of the sport. She wants to be seen as a fighter, but if Baumgardner can get under her skin in that front, it leaves an opening. And sometimes for a puncher, that's all you need. So I'm going for the upset. I'm going to go with Baumgardner winning by late knockout, 8th or 9th round. She'll land a shot. Mikaela won't get up. And it'll be an interesting night. And you could probably see the rematch in the U.S. because Top Rank will probably guarantee it.
In terms of Marshall and Claressa, I'm going with Shields here. I don't think she's going to stand there and try to trade with Marshall because she knows better. Savannah Marshall, once she gets her feet, once she's able to sit down on punches, she can crack. She can hit with both hands. Shields is a pit bull. She has that mentality where she thinks that no one can really hurt her. But Savannah Marshall has the power that can hurt her or anybody else at 160 pounds. I think that Claressa is going to use her jab, her athleticism, and her movement. The thing about Savannah Marshall, because she's a puncher, she's very Tyson Fury-esque in terms of her physical dimensions, long arms, long gangly physique. It kind of fights like him in many ways, but she doesn't have the legs that Fury has, the ability to move side to side, back and forth quickly. Shield sees that, and she will use her footwork as well as her hand speed to do enough to score points to win. The co-main, this is such a tough one for me. My head says Mayer because she's taller, because she's the more skilled lady. But my heart says that she's going to do something that her that Mayer is not going to use her boxing brain throughout. She's going to gamble a little bit too much, and Baumgardner has the power to crack her. And because of that, I'm going to side with Daniel here, and say that Baumgardner catches her with something, and she has the power to hurt uh, uh, Mayer. And I think if she gets her hurt, she's not going to let up. So I'm going to go with Baumgardner. She's not going to beat her by decision. I think she's going to beat her by stoppage. I think she's going to catch her and then rush her and finish her off. I don't know the round, but I think the power of Alycia Baumgardner is going to surface here. Um, and to Daniel's point, it could very, very well be a rematch. I could see a scenario where there's going to be a Mayer Baumgardner rematch before a Shields Marshall rematch, because I think if Shields win, she's not going to give her a rematch. She doesn't need to. She doesn't need to. By on the other hand, I can see easily a scenario where Mayer and Baumgardner could fight again because the money would be there, particularly if the rematch between those two were a main event in the United States. Yeah, that's the on either the zone, or either a matchroom promoted event on the zone, or even a top rank event. Yeah, that's the wave, and I think the more likely scenario of a rematch happening would be if Baumgardner win again. I think she's just going to catch her at some point in the fight, and then have her hurt, and then she's going to again go on attack mode and just all out and finish her off. So I think that's my prediction there. Shields by decision, and Baumgardner by stoppage. Again, I want to, if you'd like what you've heard this evening, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button, and make sure not just to subscribe, but hit that subscribe button till the bell shows. So anything new from Pound for Pound Boxing Report, you will get that instant notification. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. Mark Jones of BoxingJones.com. Intangible Boxing News, EJ Boxing Live. I'm going to go around the panel here. Begin the show, ladies first. Going to end the show, always ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com, Community Digital News. For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk media, or for those who want to check you out occasionally on TMZ Live, let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me at NewYorkFights.com. That's NYFights.com. And you can mix it up with me on boxing Twitter at PRPro San Diego. And I advise you to check out the entire NYFights.com boxing team.
I'll go to you, Daniel, of the inscriber of For Boxing News, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling. Or for those who want to talk the NBA, as training camp is getting ready to start up in the NBA in the next few weeks. For those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let them folks know where they can hit you up.
You can find me on Twitter, folks, Rux99, RAWKUZ99. That'll catch me on there. And like I said, you mentioned wrestling. There's probably me and a whole bunch of other people are probably refreshing news sites in a little bit, because after that media scrum from All Out, I would not like to be Tony Khan right now. That's all I'll say.
For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, as well as fragrance on IG, you know what it is there, Brother JRSC. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to check out all things Pound for Pound Boxing Report, just please go to the site, p4pboxingreport.com. Once again, if you wish to email us comments, questions, you can do so, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you will find links to where to find anything. Find us. and anything regarding the show on all social media platforms. Links to the YouTube channel, links to the Facebook, Twitter, IG, Tumblr page, links to where to find the show on all podcast platforms. We're just about everywhere, be it Anchor, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, just about everywhere where RSS feed distributed outlets. Also links to the donation link, Catch Me PayPal donation links. Um, Links to Beachbody on Demand. Once again, at the very least, take advantage of the 14-day free trial on Beachbody on Demand. And for 14 days, you get access to all programs on Beachbody on Demand. Next week, scheduled, uh, fingers crossed, another episode of Ladies Love Boxing show. I'll give you the date as later on this week. Ladies Love Boxing, another rendition of that. On that episode, we will do a recap of Shields Marshal, of Mayor Baumgardner, and we will do a full scale preview of the trilogy card between Gennady Golovkin and Triple G Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, their third fight. So again, for Gail from Communities Digital News, NY Fights, for Daniel from the Inscriber for Boxing News. Once again, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. And yeah, I saw that comment. I guess you're Cleveland Cavaliers fans and giving their signing of Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. How did they pull that off? New York Knicks, y'all got to be big mad right now. They just stole him right from under you. James Nolan, how did you let that happen, sir? How did you let that happen? That's all I got to say. That's my only question. How did you let that happen? But anyway, yeah, this has been episode 376 of Pound for Pound Box Report. Once again, next week. Latest rendition, latest episode, latest Ladies Love Boxing episode scheduled to take place next week. For Gail, for Daniel, I'm your host, Michael. We will see you next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Nothing unites people like watching the Knicks suffer.
Dolan, what's your problem, man? What's your problem?